Hi, I'm Vandana Saxena and I'm the CEO of Get Through Guides. So, who exactly is Get Through Guides? Well, Get Through Guides is the approved learning partner or partner in learning for ICAI and ICAEW to help ICAI members become members of ICAEW. Before I start on that though, I just want to give you a brief background on myself. I was born and brought up in the United Kingdom, and I qualified as a chartered accountant with ICAEW. I then spent 10 years working in Central and Eastern Europe before I moved to India about 6.5, 7 years ago. Why did I move? Well, quite simply because I and everyone within GTG believes that India is a nation of 1 billion entrepreneurs that could be converted to 1 billion Infosises, 1 billion Mahindras, and 1 billion Tatas. How? By your help as a chartered accountant. Big statement, hey? Well, let's see. Let's see the logic in that. What are we going to do? Well, over the next 15 to 20 minutes and over the next 4 or 5 presentations, I'm going to go through a number of things with you. I'm going to start by talking to you about the changing world that we live in. It's so different to when our parents grew up. They didn't have emails, they didn't have mobile phones, they didn't have a global landscape with people phoning all the time. They had life very differently to us. Life is changing so fast now. And because it's changing so fast, it means the skills that we need as chartered accountants also have to change fast, because chartered accountants are the backbones of any business. Now, we've all studied, we've all become chartered accountants. Some of you are going to be sitting there thinking, why on earth do I need to study further? Why do I need another piece of paper? Well, you know what? It's not about the piece of paper. It's about the skills you get in order to get that piece of paper. So I'm going to be talking to you about the skills that are needed in a global world. And it's not just my words. We've talked to some of the industry's biggest leaders, and I'll tell you as we go through the presentations what they believe are the skills that are needed in chartered accountants today. Once we've been through that, we need to take a step back and we need to admit that we're not perfect and we do have skills gaps, and that we're responsible for our future. And at the end of the day, if we are responsible for our future, how do we go about gaining the skills that will help us turn India from a nation of 1 billion entrepreneurs into 1 billion Infosises, Mahindras, Tatas? At the end of the day, what I'm here to tell you is how this ICAEW scholarship scheme can give you the tools not only to take you to the top, but to help take India to the top too. Big story? Maybe, but read on and listen on to see whether what I'm saying is true. So, let's start with the changing world that we live in. You are an ICAI member, and that's fantastic. Now that you've got the ICAI qualification, it means, no doubt, that you're earning well. And that's great. But part of what we do is about nurturing our businesses and going forward. So, when we think about all of these companies, and when we think about business, a lot of the time this is what we think about. We think about shaking hands. Yes, we've done a deal. Well, that's not what business is about. And as a chartered accountant, you know that already. A chartered accountant helps a fledgling business, like a seed that's planted, grow and grow and grow. A chartered accountant is like the sun, is like the rain coming down, and is like the food that nourishes the business to help it grow. If we as chartered accountants make the right decisions, the business is going to do well. And you know what? Things are changing rapidly. So just for a moment, I'm going to stop talking about how businesses grow. Remember, that's how you've grown as well. You were a seed, you got some knowledge, you had people who mentored you, who gave you guidance, and you fledglinged into this great chartered accountant. But what if you could go from being a little seed into a massive tree that produces even more fruit that helps our country grow? Now, in order to do that, again, let's take one step back and let's think about the skills that are needed. Why those skills are needed is because everything is changing. Shift happens. How does shift happen? Well, the next few slides are coming from a presentation that was originally created by a professor in the US called Carl Fish. Now, a number of people saw his presentation when it went viral, put some beautiful graphics to it, and I've taken a few of those slides to just indicate how things are changing and therefore how we need to change. Are you ready? So sometimes size matters. Some people say size doesn't matter. I'm 5'1". Growing up in the UK, that wasn't easy because everyone was at least a foot high or taller than me. But at the end of the day, size does matter sometimes. Let's have a look at why. Well, if you're 1 in a million in China, guess what? There's 1,300 people just like you. In India, we have that saying, "Lakhon mein ek." Lakhon mein ek. But we've got so many lakhs now that we've probably got lakhos of lakhos mein ek. In fact, there's over 1,100 people just like you. This is important. Look at this. At the end of the day, the 7% of the population in India with the highest IQs is more than the total population of the United Kingdom. That's an amazing fact. What does it mean? It means that we have more gifted and talented students and people than they have people. We're living in exponential times. How many of you send text messages? I bet you send text messages all the time. Any idea how many are sent and received every day? More than the total population on this planet. That's billions of text messages sent every day. When was the first text message sent? 1992. Not really that long ago. So things are changing. We talk about bytes and kilobytes and megabytes. We've talked about terabytes. Have you heard of zettabytes? Did you know that a zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabytes? That's massive. And 1.8 zettabytes is actually going to be produced, created, and replicated, or was replicated, produced in the year 2011. More than the previous 5,000 years. That's a lot of data. So you might be thinking, well, what's the relevance to me? Well, hello, if you're advising businesses, if you're helping businesses grow, what you're going to need to do as a chartered accountant is pull out all the information that is relevant, put it together, and give it as a recommendation to your company or your client, etc., etc. How do you get through that 1.8 zettabytes of information to find the information that's useful for you? How do you distill the essence? That's one of the qualities that a chartered accountant needs. This is also important. Now, when I talk about a student, I'm talking about anyone from any discipline. Those of you who have done a BCom, think back to your BCom. For students starting a 3-year degree, it means that half of what they've learned in their first year is outdated by the time they get to their 3rd year. How many of you use the stuff that you learned on your BCom? It's already outdated. That means that information is changing rapidly. That means that if you stop studying, if you stop learning new techniques, you're going to be outdated as well, chartered accountant or not. What it means is we're currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented, in order to solve problems that we don't even know are problems yet. And that's major. Think about it. XBRL, IFRS, all these new concepts coming into accounting that were never there 5 years ago. Well, okay, IFRS was there 5 years ago. XBRL wasn't there 10, 15 years ago. IFRS in its current form wasn't there when I started. It wasn't IFRS, it was IAS. It was International Accounting Standards. So things are changing dramatically. This is also another important point. You know that. At the moment, this is what it is. And that's you. So every time you interact with somebody outside of our country, they're not judging you as a person. They're not judging you as an ICAI member. They're judging you as an Indian. And how they interact with you and the pleasantness of that conversation with you will determine how they view our entire country. So there's a lot of responsibility on you. What that means is that things are changing rapidly, and how you choose to deal with that change is totally up to you. Your future is in your hands and no one else's.